Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode from the 10-Minute Product Podcast. Today, we will follow up on an old topic we talked about, which is your first 100 days. What do you do to be successful when you start in a job? And today, we want to move a step earlier and to figure out, should you take a job? What's the right setup for you to be successful as a CPO? What are things you can look at, and why, right? So this is what we want to jump into. The mistake, I think we've all made it. We found ourselves in jobs where we thought, how am I going to be successful here? Oh my God, everything's a bit wonky. So we'll talk through what you can do practically to try figuring out what's going on in an organization. I guess we can start with another question though, Jonas. Why? So why do you need the right mandate when you accept a CPO job? What do you think?
I think there's nothing in the interview process actually from your side. It's as the person seeking a job, right? Is that you having the right mandate is absolutely paramount that you succeed in any role. As such, and there's actually during an interview process you can actually find out a lot about whether that's the case for a particular role. The
Hmm.
consequences are if you don't have a strong enough mandate in your role as you join, the priorities may not be clear, both the
Hmm.
priorities of the company, but also the priorities for the products and your team, in effect, because you don't have the mandate to set the priorities. And lack of priorities or unclear priorities leads to confused teams,
Yeah.
which in turn leads to delays and inefficiency in the delivery cycle. Um, so mandate, make sure you have it. What do you think?
I discovered once in a job I had that there was a second product team in a company that they hadn't told me about, and they said no, but it's more of a sales team. But actually, they were making product decisions, and so we found ourselves with these competing roadmaps. One being driven purely by some sales features, the other one supposedly being more strategic. Of course, the friction was sort of predictable, and I didn't know it when I actually signed. And so you have these moments where you think it's not possible, you think you're in a bad comedy show, but it does happen, right? So yes, I agree with you. If you don't get a good sense of where you're at from the beginning, it's difficult afterwards. I would say wonky roadmaps, misaligned objectives, misaligned team incentives, people then inevitably pulling in different directions, and you find yourself trying to sort of damage, limit the damage instead of building interesting and valuable stuff. So yeah, completely agreed. But it's not easy, right? As we
Uh,
all made these mistakes, it's not easy at all.
No, no, there's things to look out for in during the interview process in particular, and for the questions you bring to the interviews. I think we both agree that the relationship, getting a mandate comes from relationships, right? Making sure that the people around you have the trust that you can manage the accountability of your role. So you need to have a firm look at the people in front of you that you're talking to, challenge them with curveball questions that kind of brings them out of the script. See how they respond. See how they behave. Are there any sensitive topics that they are less transparent about, or
Hmm.
more emotionally explaining the reason for a particular challenge, as an example? But listen and try to understand why that's the case. Obviously, acting with respect and given it you don't know the people, yes, but I think that's a key thing to kind of look at. What kind of people am I sitting in front of? Can I work with them? Do they act with trust with
Yeah.
their peers? And what are the ambitions to this role? Are they over ambitious or are they realistic?
So without giving away your secret recipes, can you give an example of a curveball question, what you consider to be a probing question to a company you're going to apply at?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing to quickly turn it into something very concrete and where it's less concept cloud and more kind of you get into the gist of it is to ask the classic question around what's your expectations
Hmm.
from me in the role over 3, 6, and let's say 12 months horizon,
Yeah.
right? And ask the the people you're talking to be make that as concrete as possible. That will reflect what they are thinking, and it will also reflect whether they are too ambitious in effects, because you have follow-up questions saying if you have to, let's say, launch a product, completely new product in 6 months,
Hmm.
you would ask follow-up questions around resource, the strategy that you that kind of shapes your roadmap,
Yeah.
and that in turn gives you a sense around where they're coming from. So like a concrete question around are your expectations over certain time horizons,
Hmm.
and ask them to be as concrete as possible. And then
Interesting.
questions there.
I like to ask also things about the organization internally. So I say, sometimes it's confidential, but I will ask people, I say, hey, so how good is the process with your goals? Are you using OKRs? Is it aligned with sales? And is it aligned with engineering? And generally, just a simple question like this will unearth a ton of stuff that might not work well internally. But yeah, no, it's good. It's great to probe this. I
Exactly.
think,
And just sorry, Chris,
yeah,
and
yeah,
just to add to that, and if you note that the people in front of you are just quoting the textbook at you, and they
yeah,
clearly are
you
trying
know
to
it. Yeah,
implement the textbook, we
yeah,
all agile is all too mature discipline by now that everybody recognize you can't implement the
yeah.
textbook. You need to optimize and customize it. That's another flag, right? Because then they got something running in theory, but
Mm.
likely an inefficient and suboptimal process
Yeah,
underneath.
yeah. So I think speaking of flags, another interesting aspect is the background and history of the companies. The reason you're interviewing for head of product is obviously that there is a need for a head of product in theory, but it also means that there has been some history. Maybe the old head of product just quit because they went on to retire or to get a better opportunity or something else. Or maybe there was a bit more, there were more waves, let's say, in the history. And so I think that asking about the past 2 3 years of product history and of product org history is also super important, because that gives you a lot of context of what is it you're getting into. Are you getting into a continuation? Are you getting into a build out? Or are you getting into a complete, fix the problems and everything's completely all over the place at the moment? We need somebody to come and do a major cleanup job. And I think that gives you also an impression, a sort of idea of the direction that you're gonna have to take with this enter with your new job, let's say.
Yes, and it's a conversation like that, as in what happened to my predecessor, if
Yeah,
relevant for the role. If it's an emotional outburst of saying the person failed
yeah,
miserably because so and so, that's very important to follow up and poke that
yeah,
and to understand it in detail, because you might be next, right? Maybe the person predecessor failed because of like a
yeah.
mandate. So another flag.
Yeah, I mean, they got hired, so clearly people thought that what person was good enough, but then something happened. I've the worst I've heard in a process is, oh yeah, it's confidential, but the person's on the way out. And I'm thinking, I'm a candidate here. I didn't sign any NDA or anything, and you're telling me that the old CPO is being, let go basically, and and I'm supposed to be trusting you because you give me this information, and it's very awkward moments quite from time to time. It does give you a massive signal though about the organization, and one way or the other, right? It could be the person, it could be the organization, but at least there's something to uncover there.
Exactly, agree. And I think at the end of the day, you just follow your gut. That sounds okay.
Mm.
Well, we all try to from time to time, but obviously your instinct grows as you sit in more and more interviews and have more and more experience,
Yeah,
and you kind of fine tune it. But if something doesn't feel uh, right, and it
yeah.
might be inexplicable why it doesn't feel right, you should lean into that, and you should try to understand why it doesn't feel right.
It's the old saying, right? A maybe is actually a no. And so if you think there's a maybe, go dig into it, figure out what's going on there, I think.
Exactly. And I think that just another tip that kind of picked up over the years is if you're sitting in an interview, maybe with a group of people, Then notice how and the people rank differently. Maybe there's a top boss and there's a CXO and there's maybe your direct manager
Yeah.
or someone else. See how their dynamic is between them.
Yes.
If it's very top down environment where the CEO or the founder runs the shop to the detail, that never comes with a mandate. Then you have
Hmm.
pure execution. And an example of what I experienced there was that I sat in an interview for the first hour with a group of leaders from a
Hmm.
company, and it was a very loose and very good conversation. And as soon as the founder came in, it was like gravity disappeared.
Yeah.
Everything just honed in on what the founder said, and
Hmm.
everything that was said, and the rest of the conversation was purely around responding to what came out of the mouth of the founder. And there's another flag of a very highly controlled top-down environment
Yeah.
where that doesn't come with a mandate.
I think if we were to classify, actually, that's a really good point. If we were to classify this, it would be a founder-led organization, and you can find sales-led organizations, but you can also find product-led organizations. And that's a really interesting filter to figure out because the, the founders sometimes are great. I mean, I've been a founder myself, so sometimes it's great. But sometimes as a founder, you have a vision of where you want to go, and you like to skip processes of user feedback, etc. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and none of us are Steve Jobs, so the likelihood of this working is not awesome. And so if you're a product leader who wants to be independent and who wants to figure out the market, crack the use cases, bring value to users, it's up to you to figure out what kind of organization do you actually want. Maybe you would like product led and you like to execute, but maybe you like to be independent and then it's not great for you. So it's a very good point. Yeah. What's the best one you've had? What's the sort of the one where you thought, wow, here I can really make a difference? Did you ever have this?
Yeah, well, luckily I've had most of those, and I may be more fortunate
Nice.
than most. But I also did learn from some bad mistakes I did in terms of wrong calls where I didn't lean into the intuition, saying this doesn't feel right. I went for it anyways, but hopefully learned a bit from it. Um, but in the good cases is where the conversation, both during interview but also in your onboarding, it flows unconstrained.
Yeah.
You feel like you're among people you know for a while. It's a bit like that when you get new friends. It just feels natural.
Yeah.
It's unconstrained. You feel that what comes out of your mouth, so as in what you say and what you do, is respected.
Yeah.
If it's challenged respectfully, um, and from the basis of good intention, obviously. Um, so I think that it's kind of an environment where that's based on trust and mutual respect. Kind of is the preamble for making sure the mandate kind of stays
Yeah.
is there, but also stays with you as long as you deliver to expectations.
Nice.
So,
So
but
yeah.
but I think just to highlight that, and also maybe to segue into so what did we learn of this conversation? There is, even in these times where if you're out looking for a job, there's further between jobs these days, obviously, than it was just 4 or 5 years ago in Europe at least. But nonetheless, if you have a strong sense that during an interview process that this doesn't feel right, in particular around whether you're getting the mandate to deliver to the ambitions of or expectations of the role, it may be hard to follow this core recommendation, which is to walk away because you're obviously looking for a job and
Yeah.
maybe there's less. But the recommendation still stands to walk away from it because in effect you won't become successful. You may actually stand back with a very bad experience
Yeah. Yeah.
from a career point of view, but also maybe something that becomes a mark in your CV at the end of the day. But you'll never become successful. First of all, you'll never deliver to the expectations
Yeah.
that are there. Your teams will become confused. They'll start diffusing, as in you can't attract talent, and you can't direct the teams. So you're not set up to
Agreed.
succeed.
Here's a last one I just realized that I usually ask in interviews is a very direct question, but I say I will ask, what is it that you expect me to fix? big things, big sort of problems that you haven't been able to fix in the last year that you will expect me to actually address. And that's interesting because that uncovers a lot of the stuff that you will have to deal with as well, which could be anything from, tech debt to misalignment with different teams, commercial and product and product and and whatnot. So yeah, that's my last.
That's a good
That's
one.
what I would say. It's a good checklist question. Just ask it and see what comes out, basically.
Exactly. And then fast shoot those, quick fire those follow-up questions if there's anything you uncover you need to understand more.
Nice.
Nice.
Cool.
All right.
Well, good luck to everyone. We hope this was useful. Good luck for all the interviews and the head of product roles.
Exactly. And this was yet another episode from the 10-minute product podcast. As always, we love likes. We like followers. Do come in, even if you leave behind a review, that will help us immensely as well to increase the reach of this podcast.
Send us questions. What do you want to hear in the future?
Exactly. And we are here to pick that up.
And thank you. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.